Today we are closing a significant chapter in the history of Plattsburgh, New York. The military presence in this community dates back to the beginning days of our country, and over the past 40 years, the Air Force's 380th Wing has been a part of this wonderful community.
The North Country term describes both the geographic concept and state of mind of upstate New York. Although you wouldn't find the term used on a map, it is a region identity of Plattsburgh. It's hard to walk in downtown Plattsburgh without passing a landmark, marking the role Plattsburgh has played in major wars like the Revolutionary War and onward.
Some of the best times of my life were here. I've spent ages 20 to 23 here, which for a lot of people are their college years. For me, it was the military.
The air base was activated in July of 1956, permanently relocating 4,000 airmen and their families from the Shepherd Air Base in Texas. Yet the air base was not ready for them to live at. Lack of housing was the biggest of problems. Dorm halls took care of most of the unmarried personnel, but families still needed a home. The shortage of affordable housing forced some airmen to move to other parts of Clinton County or even Montreal. Because of the 20% jump in population, Plattsburgh found itself to be overcapacitated. There were traffic jams and nightlife picked up, which seemed to alarm the locals. The people of Plattsburgh soon came around to the men and their families. The economy in Plattsburgh started to grow, and there were more jobs becoming available.
Well, it was a lot of fun, and the military presence was very exciting. It gave Plattsburgh an identity, and a lot of the people that served in Plattsburgh Air Force Base ended up living here and becoming our friends. So, in fact, General Tobin was one of them. He was Major Tobin when I first met him, and his children and I went to school together at Saranac Central School, graduated together. We're still in touch. We're still very close. And there's a whole host of other Air Force friends and families that are friends and family to this day, 30 years later. But the whole city was like that.
For 40 years, the air base was fully functional and became a part of history. They also became the official military support installation for the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. By 1985, the 380th has more assigned aircrafts than any other SAC wing. With the air base being so successful, to hear of a possible closure was shocking.
Yeah, I think everybody realized closing a base was gonna have a huge impact on the community. Military bases everywhere have a huge role in the economy and communities. Plattsburgh's not a big community. Closing the base was a lot of jobs going out.
The base had been threatened with closure in 1991 when there was a discussion on which military installation it would close to save money. In the late 1980s and into the 1990s, 4,400 military members and their families were on the base. The people in Maine didn't put up much of a fight, claiming that quality of life for military personnel was a factor the commission should have been weighing. But it went nowhere, and Plattsburgh Air Force Base continued to operate. The community was relieved, but the fear of closure remained on many people's minds.
Maybe we had a little bit too much confidence after the first two rounds because we won them both, and we're obviously superior Air Force Base facility, not just because of the facility, but because of the airspace around it. And our understanding was McGuire was quite congested in the metropolitan New Jersey, New York area. So we thought we had a leg up, and we had a good relationship with the people.
2 years later, Plattsburgh Air Force Base was threatened with yet another closure, but the Air Force had big plans to become a major strategic air command base for the Northeast. After testifying twice at the BRACC, in 1993, the BRACC votes to locate the Air Mobility Wing at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey.
Perhaps I was overconfident. I just couldn't fathom being without the Air Force Base. And we're in my office, all the major players that had put together our presentation to the BRAC. We're in our office listening on a transistor radio, which will tell you the time frame. But the boat came down and we lost. And boom, my heart sank. Everybody was silent. But what do you do? What do you do?
Plattsburgh Air Force Base shuts its doors.
We had broken hearts. We had to mend our broken hearts, and it was tough saying goodbye to a friend. And I still get emotional talking about it.
While the announcement of the closure came in 1993, the actual base gates did not close until September 30th, 1995, more than 2 years later. In that time, the North Country pulled itself together to deal with what would soon be a big void in the community.
When I arrived approximately 20 years ago, it was right on the heels of when the base was closing. So I did not live in Plattsburgh at its peak. But our region needed to own our identity, and we really began to embrace the aerospace and manufacturing and transportation clusters that have become worldwide and world known for Plattsburgh today.
We worked with Governor Cuomo, the first Governor Cuomo, Mario Cuomo, and he was really adroit in saying that if you want to build rail cars and subway cars for New York State, you got to have a New York State presence. So he knew that we just lost an Air Force base, Bombardier, based out of Montreal, and we're like the suburb of Montreal. We got a handshake option on 6 acres of land in the south end of the city outside the Air Force Base. And we guessed what size of facility they would need. So we had these architectural drawings of the facility sitting on these 6 acres. Right there, that's where the Bombardier facility is today. So they hired about 600 workers, but that was the catalyst that brought all the component manufacturers and the that brought all the manufacturers, mainly from the Montreal area, Quebec area, to Plattsburgh. And that was the genesis of where we are today.
Now, as we continue to grow and develop, the 20 years or so after the base closed became our responsibility to continue to advance through good planning, a legacy of planning, and not take it for granted. We also have much more opportunity ahead of us. We've been embracing kind of a slogan of Elevate Plattsburgh, knowing that the flight is not over, and that in the coming weeks and months and even years, as we see a cross-pollination of yesterday with today, we're going to see some unique growth. We have a strong military history within our region, which we continue to celebrate today.
While the announcement of the closure came in 1993, the actual base gates did not close until September 30th, 1995, more than 2 years later. And the effects that it has left on the members of the base and in the community are still seen to this day. The North Country is finding its identity and pulling itself together to deal with the void in the community even after all these years. The future of the Air Force Base and the Plattsburgh community are looking up. The community has hope that businesses and people will continue to grow and flourish here, and that the history will never be forgotten.